any place that I can go that is not normal, I love. You know, it's like a magic trick.
In fact,
An ocean that you cannot sink in, except nobody really talks about how astonishingly painful it is when you get this water in your eyes. It's agony. I mean, if you've ever been, it's a pain that it's like putting chili in your eye. And we thought, oh my goodness, we're actually kind of trapped here in a way.
Do you sing?
Well, I do now that I've done Into Alia and I had to do karaoke on stage in front of 900 people a night. We were probably in one of the only places in the world where we didn't know that monumental human disaster had occurred, which was a very, very weird feeling.
Welcome to Travel Secrets with me, Tanya Rose, the podcast sharing wisdom for fellow travellers. Each week, I ask my guests to reveal their 6 travel secrets and the holidays and adventures that surround them. Today, my guest is the fantastic British actress, Rosamund Pike, famed for so many critically acclaimed performances, from a Gone Girl to a Bond Girl, 2 Maries in A Private War and Radioactive. And I have to say, that film about Marie Colvin was spectacular. I absolutely loved it. Your new film, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, and your fantastic performance at the National Theatre in Inter Alia. I can't wait to see that when you come back in the West End later on this year. So before we get into your travel secrets, perhaps you can tell us a little bit about yourself and how has travel impacted the person you became? Have you travelled since you were a child? Let's just talk about travel and you.
I think I've always been very romanced by the idea of travel. I think I always think it's exotic and romantic, and there have been times where I've sort of followed old journeys that have inspired me or I felt were kind of potent in some way. Like, you know, I started my career and I remember very clearly the first time I had to say, you know, where are you traveling today? And I had to say Los Angeles. And it just sort of gave me a thrill because when I first got the role in the Bond film, I'd never been to America. And within a few weeks, I was flown to New York to sort of meet the editors of all the magazines, because of course media and publicity was so different then. And I was kind of taken around as the new taste around, you know, these huge towers to all the magazine editors. And then some point later, I went to Los Angeles, and the thrill of saying Los Angeles was, it felt so magical and I didn't know what to expect. And I remember, you know, staying at the Four Seasons and arriving to the scent of lilies, which I'm sure is still there when you go into the Four Seasons in LA. This heady smell that seems to suggest sort of opulence and promise. But then later in my career, I felt I wanted to do the old journey that people used to do to go west, you know, which starlets went west to kind of make their fortune in Hollywood. And I took the Great West Chief, which is a train that goes from Chicago to LA.
Oh,
and it crosses however many states, and it's a 2-day journey. And of course, I had such romantic notions of this train, this double-decker silver train that kind of hums into Chicago Station. And then, of course, it was sort of underwhelming because a lot of the really beautiful places you travel through in the dark.
Oh, so you didn't see it?
But I was most impressed by the hardened train staff who would, you know, this train was very sort of rickety and rattly, and they would balance the most extraordinary sort of trays laden with cups up and down the train. But yes, it wasn't the sort of Orient Express, put it that way, which I still have never been on.
And I am desperate. It's on my bucket list. I really, really want to do the Orient Express. Meant to be fantastic.
But I think I always see promise and adventure in travel, and I wish I had someone else to do the packing.
I know.
I think that's the kind of traveller I am.
Did you grow up travelling?
Well, not really. As in, I never had a family holiday. That was not. That wasn't really in our price point, or in our, I suppose you'd say. But my parents are musicians. They're classical singers, and I remember there was a very magical summer when I finished primary school that my father was doing a modern opera in a Tuscan Hilltown festival, music festival. And it was for very little money indeed. And he agreed to do it on the condition that he could also bring his daughter. And they, we'd have a hotel room that was big enough for both of us and things, and that my meals would be paid for and things like that. So they agreed. And that remains, my love of Tuscany remains from the magic of that trip. And of course, the atmosphere of being with singers who are very good fun, and just being around creative people has always been very enchanting as well.
Do you sing?
Well, I do now that I've done Inter Alia and I had to do karaoke on stage in front of 900 people a night. It's not really my pleasure zone, I can tell you that. I think when you've grown up with people who
really sing well,
and that's their primary means of expression. It's not like it wasn't mine. I think if you are a singer, you need to sing. Your voice, I think a real singer, you don't understand them until you hear them sing. Yeah. That's my sort of touchstone feeling about singers.
Thank you for watching Travel Secrets. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying doing it. Please take a second and subscribe now. Let's go into your travel secrets. What is the number one destination you think everyone should go to once in their lifetime?
I think Petra in Jordan is probably the place that has literally taken my breath away. And people had described it to me and said what I would experience as you walk down this canyon of rock towards the treasury, I think it's called, the first building that you encounter. And when you see it awes you with the scale and the beauty and the way the light hits the rock and the carvings and the feat of it. I think Petra is really remarkable and not in any way diminished by tourism, really. I think any of these great giant structures that you can look at and sort of carve out your own gaze away from the people trying to get you to buy whatever it is they're trying to get you to buy, beads or something that you're not going to want, or sand or something. It's anytime you can take your gaze up and you can still encounter something almost as it was, it's pretty amazing.
Did you go there when you were filming A Private War?
Exactly. We filmed in Jordan, and Jordan afforded all kinds of adventures. I also took my children to the Dead Sea, which is still something they talk about because it was so extraordinary. I mean, it's not a place of beauty. It's just a sort of, it's something that tricks the brain, talking of, it's like a magic trick.
The fact
an ocean that you cannot sink in, except nobody really talks about how astonishingly painful it is when you get this water in your eyes. Ooh. It's agony. I mean, if you've ever been, it's a pain that it's like putting chili in your eye. It's awful.
Or if you have a cut on anywhere.
I guess so. Yeah.
Ow.
But the idea of putting a child in who can't yet swim, but they cannot, they just bob around.
How old were they when they did that?
I mean, very little. We had my son's second birthday in Jordan, and the older one must have been 5. But we also went camping in the desert. We went out into the Wadi Rum and went out, in jeeps and slept under the stars in this sort of, it felt like a sort of intergalactic landscape, or a kind of lunar landscape or something, with stars that you can't believe.
I bet they remember that, even the little one probably.
Yes, I mean, I think they do remember that. You're building a fire and eating out of doors, as always tastes better, really.
Even if it's burnt to a crisp?
Maybe not, but burning always has a sort of, it's a strong flavour in our house because my partner always burns the toast. So it's a sort of, so burnt things has a strong resonance in our family. My children sort of hate it. They hate smelling. They're always very angry when they have to go to school with their shirts smelling of burnt toast, which is most days.
Oh, poor things. What's your most unexpected travel experience?
Well, I mean, it was 2001 that I first went traveling alone, or at least with a group of friends, and I'd left university, and we actually went into Kunming in China in order to take this train into Vietnam. And the story, as I remember it, was that this train, somebody had been slightly out on their drawings. So instead of the train passing through somewhere that was sort of logical. It went on an illogical route. So it had to go through this spectacular sort of mountain range. That's how I've remembered it. And anyway, it caused a lot of problems on the line. So the train line is often shut, and it was shut when we went. So we had to take a very circuitous bus route to get into Vietnam. But it was also the time in 2001 when The Beach, do you remember that Alex Garland book, The Beach? Yeah. And it had just come out and everybody was obsessed with it. And a film had been made with Leonardo DiCaprio. And everybody who was traveling in Southeast Asia at that point was in search of
The beach.
The beach, or a yet undiscovered beach. And it didn't really occur to any young person at that time that it was highly unlikely you would be able to find an undiscovered beach, as in the novel. So we, armed with maps, because there was no Google Maps at the time, and you were scouring, maps of countries or the coast, looking for things that places you might go or be able to access that weren't on the normal routes. And anyway, we got to some area outside of Hanoi, and we got on what seemed to be a sort of supply boat. Everyone was communicating in sign language a lot, and we got on this boat, this sort of supply boat, going to an island, which was the island we were aiming for. And when we got to this island, people welcomed us. They clearly were not used to tourists, and we travelled a bit further inland, and a family were very, very welcoming and offered us to stay. And we went out walking, trying to find, the beach. Anyway, we came back. We had a lovely meal with this family, and we paid them for our bed and board. And then other members of the village clearly got wind of the fact that there were these tourists here who had dollars. And we suddenly found that it was quite difficult to leave. And the rides that were so easy to get from the place where the boat came in were suddenly not forthcoming when we wanted to go back.
Oh my goodness.
And we thought, oh my goodness, we're actually kind of trapped here in a way. And so very early one morning, we made a pact with each other to walk back in the direction we thought the port was. And we made it, and we just sat there, to wait for, we had no idea when a boat would come. Anyway, a boat came, we got on the boat. We realized we'd been very stupid, very, very stupid. We got on a boat, we got back to Hanoi, and we went to a restaurant to just sort of unwind, have a beer, have some rice. And there on the TV in the restaurant was a movie of this plane coming into New York City and crashing into the Twin Towers.
God. Yeah,
and
of course.
We then saw that it wasn't a movie, it was the news, but also that this was sort of 3-day-old news.
Oh my God.
So we were probably in one of the only places in the world where we didn't know that monumental human disaster had occurred, which was a very, very weird feeling. Because how hard it is now to be oblivious to
go anywhere.
So that remains quite a strange travel experience. What was the word you used?
It was unexpected.
An unexpected
I think that's very unexpected.
Yes, it was unexpected. But, that's when the sort of thirst for adventure can, bite you in the back, as it were. But I think as young people, you do foolish things. I'm sure you did too, didn't you?
Yes. I don't think I've ever done anything quite as adventurous as that, maybe. Walking back. No, I don't think so. I've seen an amazing photograph of you in a BA advert.
Oh, yes.
Not advert, it was an article, which was very unexpected. The photograph of you was incredible. It was in the wing or the engine. You were standing in the engine, weren't you?
Well, I was asked to do High Life magazine, and often BA High Life will photograph people on the cover in a destination where BA flies. And I think I was about to start rehearsing the play, or for whatever reason, I couldn't travel anywhere. And we were talking about places that were near. And I said, you know what? The part of BA that I really love and would love to see is the place where all the planes are serviced. I'd love to go and see, would you ever let somebody be photographed there in the hangar, where the planes are? And at first it was considered maybe a bit unlikely. And then suddenly the gates were opened and it was possible. And we did this really experimental shoot where I stood in the engine of a 787, and then on the wing of a 787, and on the engine of a 777 Boeing, and it was just a thrill. I mean, any place that I can go that is not normal, I love. So the idea, it's all the stuff about, it's the same thing that draws me to the theatre or to film sets. It's the magic that you go into another space. It's a space that you're not meant to see. The wings of the stage are not what you're meant to see when you go and see a play. Where the set ends is not what you're meant to see when you're watching a film. So the view into an aircraft from the wing is not what a passenger is meant to see, and certainly not standing in the engine, being able to turn those great turbine blades.
It was
and of
so
course I
amazing.
got to ask all the questions of the engineers and all the things that a nerd like me loves to know.
But they must have been thrilled, because probably they'd love to tell someone that and no one's interested.
Well, I think it's sort of, I'm deeply respectful of aeroplanes, and I know how much, how many lives we entrust to these great machines every day.
Yeah.
And they're pretty, they're pretty mighty things, aircraft. I'm a real lover of the 747, Queen of the Skies, and I actually made a special trip to Seattle.
To the Boeing?
To the Boeing Factory.
Factory, did you?
Yeah, which was a big thrill too.
Was it?
And I saw there's what's it called? The dream. I want to say the dream. No, I want to say the dream catcher. It's the aircraft that transports bits of the dream.
Oh, really?
It's like a great sort of whale that can take the nose of a great plane in. And there are all kinds of wonderful things about the Boeing Factory, like things that you will think I'm a total nerd when I tell you.
The aviation nerd. That's amazing.
Like, they have nothing is in the factory for longer than, I think, 48 hours or 24 hours. So any part that comes in will be on an aircraft within 48 hours.
Really? There's
no storage there, which I find very efficient. I think it shows a kind of efficiency that I would really like to have in my life.
So aviation and also cars. You're a lover of old cars, aren't you?
Yeah, I bought my Citroën DS when I made Pride and Prejudice in 2004. I called her Jane. And she's a green Citroën DS from 1972. And she's a wonderful creature. And the first long road trip I did in her, I drove to Croatia. And it's just a different view of the world. If you're in a slow, stately car that looks graceful, people are less angry with you on the road. Yes, they're more likely to let you in, because it's sort of amusing to see this sort of green ship sailing around. And she goes wrong, of course. She overheats, and I have to stop with the bonnet up and
what
topping
to do?
up the radiator with bits of water. And yes, I mean, there was one time I was driving back from Prague with my children, and I'd stopped because she'd overheated, and it was by a hornet's nest, which was just awful. And I'm such a waspophobe. I mean, it was my punishment for something. Anyway, I heard this fizzing coming from the battery, and I thought, oh dear, that's not good. And the battery was clearly sort of very overexcited. And it was about the hottest day you can imagine in France in August, when most mechanic shops are closed. Anyway, I found somebody stopped, and they told me that there was a garage that might sell a new battery, a couple of miles away, 3 miles away or something. So I drove with everything I could possibly think of to switch on in this car on. The windscreen wipers, the headlights, the radio, the heating, everything to suck as much electricity away from the battery as I could, so that the thing didn't explode and overheat. So they thought this total madwoman was arriving on the hottest day of the year with the windscreen wipers going, and it was quite funny.
Oh my goodness.
But it didn't blow up, and I got
you
a
got
new
a new battery?
Yeah.
Very good.
But it's those things that, I sort of see my child sitting at the side of the road looking, and I think this is edifying. This is edifying. This is, if you were with the kind of mother who never got into scrapes, You might be different. You might, one day you'll be able to tell these stories and, moan at me, complain about me, but at least, it's not vanilla,
Definitely not vanilla. Oh, that's hilarious. That's marvellous. Wonderful. What is your most overrated or underrated travel experience or place you've been to?
Well, I do love that feeling of awe. I think that is something I seek out when traveling, and I love trains. So one of the places that we discovered on one of our European road trips in my old car was this magnificent hotel at the foot of the Eiger called the Bellevue des Alpes, which is a hotel dating back to 1800 and something. And you cannot believe its location. It's right at the foot of the north face of the Eiger. Mm-hmm. It was the place where climbers would go before beginning that sort of feat of all climbing, to test, bravery, courage, endurance, all of it. And people would come to spectate, back in the day and see, failed attempts.
Yeah, so many failed attempts of the
all
north
kinds of
face
things.
of the
And then obviously the real heroes of that hotel would be the returning climbers who'd made it. Anyway, it can only be reached by train, a cog railway, because obviously trains are meant to go on the flat. And these extraordinary cog railways that pull you up the mountain to this place called Kleine Scheidegg, which is a little village which, when all the trains stop and you're left there at night, and you've got the looming presence of the Eiger over you, it's very, very powerful indeed. Yeah. But by day, there is also a further train that can take you inside the Eiger and the Monk mountains, and it's taken you right up to the sort of somewhere up in the peaks, and it's a real tourist attraction.
Oh, is that the Jungfrau?
Yes, it's the Jungfrau Railway that takes you up inside, and the feat of the engineering of the railway is magnificent. What you arrive at the top is hell. Oh. It's a kind of hideous tourist hell, and you think, no, this is awful. I wish I'd never come. It's a Lindt chocolate factory, and I'm a chocoholic. I mean, I love Lindt chocolate, but I don't want to be able to buy a Lindt Lindor at the top of a mountain, because you feel like such a fraud. You think about those poor people who died on the mountain. You think about the brave people who've successfully climbed it, and then you
are having a Lindor ball,
having traveled by train. And there are people in Instagram-worthy dresses who've come up on the train just to have an Instagram photo with some snow at the top of you wouldn't survive. I mean, I wouldn't survive. None of us would survive up there. And we're in a place where we shouldn't be. It feels a bit like going to the moon without knowing how to be an astronaut.
Exactly.
It feels
in an Instagram.
It feels sort of arrogant and a bit shameful. So I think that's my underwhelming
very interesting
thing. So I would definitely recommend going to Kleine Scheidegg, experiencing those mountains, but staying at that level. Unless, of course, you're a mountaineer, in which case,
then you get your crampons and things and try.
But do you know what I mean? When you go to somewhere where the human footprint feels all wrong.
Yeah, all wrong.
And it's sort of disheartening and somehow a bit sort of sad. Yeah.
It is happening a little bit too often now, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yes, maybe. I mean, I haven't found it. I went back to Cambodia recently, which is one place that I traveled on the same trip as the Vietnam trip, when I actually branched off from the two girls I was traveling with and went on my own, because I think I've always quite liked solo adventure, not because I'm particularly brave, but because I like to challenge my own fear. I think I'm naturally quite a fearful person, but who recognizes fear as not a particularly useful emotion. So you challenge I sort of challenge it, and will fly somewhere and rent a car and do something on my own. And this was one such case. I remember leaving the girls in Ho Chi Minh City and taking a boat up the Mekong, and I went up into Cambodia on my own, which turned out to be just an inspirational trip. There's a story there that I can't tell you, but there was once I arrived in Siem Reap and experienced those temples. And I remember this wonderful guy I met called San Pork. I always remember his name because, of course, it was written on pieces of paper. And when you wrote people's name and phone number down, you can still see them sometimes. Yeah. He was sort of my guide, and I'd jump on the back of his motorbike and he would give me tips like, we have to go to this temple in the dark because you're going to think I'm like I'm going to sound like I'm some sort of gullible teenage girl. A guy saying,
okay,
we have to go, we have to go here in the dark.
Sample.
Not that, not in that way. We have to go early in the morning before the dawn because you have to experience the sunrise. And anyway, he would take me and he would leave me. And I remember walking up these steps of this temple in the dark and waiting at the top of this structure. I mean, these structures are sort of so mighty and beautiful. But this was a sort of one, without anyone else there. And I will never forget the sun coming up. It wasn't like a sunrise. It was like a ball of fire coming out of the blackness.
Oh, amazing.
And I don't know what made, I don't understand. I don't know what, to this day why it didn't get light first.
Literally,
I don't know what. It was the red rising sun as a ball of fire coming out of blackness. And I don't know, I almost think it can't have been real because surely that's not what ever happens. There's a dawning before you see the sun, but that is what I saw.
And he was right.
Well, yes, he was right. But I was alone, so I don't know if I hallucinated the whole thing or something.
Did you take a picture?
No, I didn't have I know, because I've always had, funny enough, I have a funny relationship with photos. I believe that if you take photographs of a trip, you remember the trip through the pictures you took and not through your own eyes. So I go back and forth. Sometimes I really photograph something intensely and I have really good cameras. And sometimes I don't take any pictures at all. And that whole Cambodia trip, which I remember so vividly, I didn't take a single photograph.
But because you have it in your mind,
I have such clear pictures in my mind. And then recently, with the work I do for, I'm the ambassador for a landmine charity, the Mines Advisory Group. And I went back to see their work in Cambodia. And before we went further into the field where the landmines are, closer to the Thai border, we went back to Siem Reap. And of course, Siem Reap, since the pandemic, is now, what was dirt paths is now paved roads. I mean, it was unrecognizable.
Was it?
I mean, unfortunately, I don't have any pictures to compare, but pictures in my mind's eye. Yes. I mean, it was unrecognizable.
How extraordinary.
In 20 years.
And you didn't do the same night climb up and then see the sun then?
No, we got up very early and went, but the whole thing about going to visit the temples of Angkor Wat have become more, it's a much more of a machine now.
Yeah.
And I do feel very grateful to have been...
When you went?
To have been there when I did go. There were far fewer people then. It's still incredibly wonderful because of the way these temples are surrounded by trees, and that sort of, you feel it's a place where some of the, you've probably been, some of the trees and the roots are lifting up the stones built by humans. It's like the land is reclaiming it. And of course, that's what made it so wonderful for a film like Tomb Raider.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Do you go back every year for your landmine charity?
I try and go to different places. I've been to Lebanon with them, Cambodia. We're planning a trip to Sri Lanka next year. I was supposed to go to Ukraine, and then my children very honestly said, I don't want you to go.
Yeah. No, I think
we'd lived in Prague for 4 years, and the war was very, very at the forefront of their minds. And we lived very close to the Ukrainian embassy. So we were very, very aware of, fleeing Ukrainians and the trauma. And I think they
just don't want you to do that.
No, not yet.
No, I think they're right. I do think they're right. Let's go on to food and drink. It's so much part of travel. What do you like eating? Where do you eat? What's your favourite restaurant? Where's been your favourite drink? Let's just talk about food and drink.
I love
travel.
Food and drink. I'm lucky enough to have had such varied experiences of food and drink. So I've just come back from a trip in September. I went on a 2-week trip to China with my family, and my children speak Chinese, which is a superpower. And it means that I have an experience of China that I couldn't otherwise have, because we can dive into the midst of something and not fear, getting lost or getting ripped off or any number of things. And so we can, we go into the night markets, and the things to eat I mean, my husband, mainly to amuse the children, ate a skewer of scorpions grilled before him on the griddle. And I had sort of quail's eggs dusted in sesame that were just, and you're spending 10p on this deliciousness. Yeah. It's so there's eating like that.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's amazing. Or kind of blackened tofu, just sort of chopped up and strewn with spices and sort of wok fried in front of you and then delivered back with sort of just an explosion of flavour. So we were filming The Wheel of Time, a series I did for 4 years, and we went in our first season to Slovenia, which is close to Prague, which was our main base. And Slovenia is so beautiful, and there's a mountainous region with these waterfalls and pools of the palest turquoise water, which is colder than anything you can imagine. I mean, it takes your breath away with how cold it is, but it looks clear, so inviting. Beautiful. And on a hot summer's day, you think, oh, there's nothing more inviting. You jump in, it freezes your bones. It's even on the hottest day of the year. But there's a restaurant there called Hissa Franco, and I think Anna Roche, who's the chef there, who now has 3 Michelin stars. The whole place is an experience. Yeah. You have to surrender. And I love places where you just surrender to someone's vision and you eat too much and you just get bewildered by taste and excitement and imagination. And it's I think it's the actress in me. Yeah. It's the theatrical experience of a place like that where there's no choice. It's a performance. And I think that part of eating really excites me. Yeah. I was also lucky enough to go to El Bulli before it closed. Yeah. And that was a meal I will never, ever, ever forget. I mean, the theatrics of it, and the way that talking of a film that I'm promoting now, the Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which is about magicians and magic and the place of magic in our world. It's about magicians taking down the world's worst people. It's a kind of Robin Hood sort of way, using magic and illusion and, trickery to foil, dastardly people out of their assets. But, in these restaurants, you're often given something that your eyes tell you will taste like one thing, and your mouth, you'll have an explosion of something completely different, or you'll think it'll be hot and it'll be cold. And that's not that I remember something that looks absolutely 100% like a peanut, and in fact it tastes of, I don't know, cheese or something. Something
completely different. Yeah,
and almost something I remember at the El Bulli experience that was with, it was like vapor, but you could taste it. It was almost like you were inhaling vapor, but you had a full meal. It's, it's Willy Wonka stuff. Yeah, it's the stuff that enchanted me as a child when, Roald Dahl wrote about a piece of chewing gum that could give you a 3-course meal. I think it's the same person. Yes. Yeah. It's the same person gets enchanted by those experiences.
Let's go on to your top travel tip.
Oh, gosh, I never think I'm qualified to give advice on anything. If you have a Citroën DS, take a 9mm spanner with you at all times. I mean, really, that's my top travel tip. That's probably it, actually, for all the Citroën DS lovers and owners out there.
That's brilliant. Or a full-time mechanic, maybe? No.
I think you have to be able to do a bit yourself. If you have an old car, probably avoid France in August when all the mechanics are closed, because you'll find yourself like me, taking out a thermostat in front of a Carrefour with a mechanic on FaceTime in the UK, with sort of nothing, having achieved the sort of mighty feat, which I have to say I was quite impressed by, dripping with sweat, covered in oil. And then realised only after removing the thermostat that I was absolutely ravenous, had nothing in the car at all but an enormous bulb of fennel. Oh. And I had just sort of taken a big bite of this fennel as this mother and son pulled up. And I think I looked like a madwoman. I was in shorts, a drenched with sweat sort of vest, the engine was up, I was covered in oil, and I had a fennel bulb in my mouth. I mean, I looked like someone you do not want your child to come too close to.
Have you seen that weird lady? Oh, that's so hilarious.
Yeah, I'm not scared of being the weird lady, but I have limits sometimes. Another travel tip. I mean, I swear by melatonin for jet lag. Are we allowed to talk about drugs?
Yes, absolutely. You certainly are.
I mean, melatonin changed my life when my friend Alex Michaelides, who is one of my friends from the National Youth Theatre, who's now a best-selling author, which is someone I'm very proud of. So if you haven't read The Silent Patient or The Fury, his brilliant novels, then you should. Also about travel, because he's a great traveller. Yeah, I mean, the sense of place is very important to his books. Anyway, when he lived in LA and was at film school in LA, and we were all in our 20s, he introduced me to melatonin, 2.5 milligrams of melatonin. The first 2 nights you travel anywhere, and it will correct your body clock.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
And it's
the only thing is, it gives me weird dreams.
That's quite exciting, though, isn't it?
They are quite weird.
Do you write down your dreams?
No, I don't think I'd like to write these ones down. Honestly, they're very strange, the dreams that I have on melatonin. Yeah.
But does that mean you forego it? Or
No, I still take it. When I go, like I'm going to Bangkok next week, and it's a 14-hour flight and then a 7-hour, 10-hour time difference, I will definitely take melatonin for 2 or 3 nights.
It's magical when you have to do what I have to do and work quickly, and you probably do too. And it also helps when you're doing night shoots, like I have to do, because we have to reset our body clocks madly. But that seems like a sort of quite a boring travel tip.
No, it's a good one. And actually, Piers Morgan was on this podcast. He said, I always used to take melatonin, and I've now found a new thing that is called Let Me Sleep, as in let me sleep, but Let Me Sleep, which has melatonin, magnesium, and something else. And he said it's even better.
Oh, I was going to add magnesium to my recipe, but that's usually when I'm feeling a bit frazzled as well. You know, and I know that my brain's working kind of overtime, and I need to quieten it down.
Well, when you go to New York this weekend, look in the pharmacy, because you can't buy it here.
Let Me Sleep.
Let Me Sleep.
Okay, Let Me Sleep.
Apparently good.
I will.
Top tip.
A New York pharmacy, but it's the New York pharmacies I don't know if I can cope with, because now they're all locked up. Have you been in one recently?
No.
All the aisles. All the aisles are locked up, right?
Are they?
So as you start to reach towards it, some voice will go off and say, customer in aisle 9 requiring deodorant.
Oh my God.
And you're like, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, okay, sorry. You know, so, and then somebody will come and say, look at you, rather, you know, as though you've caused them an inconvenience.
That's hilarious.
And then they'll unlock the cupboard and they'll hand you the deodorant or whatever.
What's your most poignant travel memory?
What's yours?
Gosh, do you know, I've never been interviewed back on my own questions. That's really interesting. What is my most poignant? God, I really don't know. You have to give me 5 minutes to think about that. Poignant. I'm going to have to think about it, because I can't think of it.
It's a funny one, the poignancy, isn't it? It's a sort of what makes something poignant.
Because it can be memorable. I think my most poignant is that I have a locket that I wear wherever I go in the world that has a photo of my mother, my father, and then my husband and my son on one side. And I can never open it. It's really difficult to open, but I know it's there. And I take it on every trip. And recently I went somewhere and my mother had just died. And I came back and the locket was actually on my bed and it was open. And it was really strange because honestly, you cannot open this locket. And she had literally just died, and it was my first trip afterwards. And I really found that very poignant.
That
was
is
really
very moving. That is very moving and very. That's very special and uncanny and poignant. Yes, Wow. I complete. No, that's okay. Okay, so you've reminded me of something. So my grandmother, my Scottish grandmother, always used to say to me, she'd never really traveled. She'd traveled a bit in Europe, but she'd never been to America. But she always said this quite strange thing, that she had a guardian angel who was a Native American. And she'd often say to me, "Darling, my Native American will look after you," that sort of thing. Quite unusual for a
Scot.
For a Scot. Anyway, I ended up making a film called Hostiles in Santa Fe in 2017. I had 2 children by then, and my grandmother lived to see the birth of my second child, and she died when she was 96. And I thought, oh gosh, I wish I could tell her that I was going off to make this film, because it was a proper Western, and it was about a journey of hope and reconciliation, really, with, people who'd been at war, American soldiers versus Native American, and where Studi played the chief of this Cheyenne group. And my character, her whole family had been murdered by another group, by the Comanches. So for her to then be traveling with another, albeit another group, different group of Native Americans, it was still very hard for her. And she was obviously going through this grief process. And anyway, my beloved grandmother had just died, and I had a scene where I had to bury my children in the show. It was a terrible thing to have to do. And my character was a very resilient woman, and she wanted to do it herself. She wanted to go down into the earth and dig the earth herself. And it was really difficult and emotional. And I was sort of thinking about my grandmother and thinking about this, her guardian angel. And anyway, I went out to this place and did this take of scrabbling in the earth and the burial. And then I looked up, and there was a Scotch thistle right there. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a Scottish thistle. And I thought, well, they must be indigenous to this part of the world. And they are not. Oh, God. So weird, isn't it? You reminded me of that with your story about the locket.
And now we're both sitting sobbing.
And maybe I imagined that like I did the sun coming up out of the blackness, but I don't think I did.
Oh, how wonderful.
Isn't that weird?
No, that's lovely.
So the strange messages we get, maybe that's what poignancy
is. And we just
is.
don't know.
Yeah.
There is so much more to life than all of this. So I think we do have signs from time to time. I certainly did. You certainly did. Yeah. Before I let you go, and I'll ask you one last question on your photograph and everything. You've just come back from Abu Dhabi, haven't you?
Oh, we filmed some of Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
I'm desperate to go to the Louvre in Abu Dhabi. Is it wonderful?
The Louvre is a totally extraordinary museum. At first, I thought, oh gosh, I don't know what I feel about any of this building in Abu Dhabi, all this industry. It's got 24-hour construction in that city at the moment. There's this whole arts district being built, and it never stops. And all the material used for building does not come from the country. Everything has to be shipped in, and there's something that's sort of disturbing about it in some ways. And yet the Louvre, which is such a beautiful design, it's under this dome, sort of inspired by some of the architecture of the Eiffel Tower. And it's on the water, and it's almost built like a Medina. So you've got the waterways coming in, you've got pathways that you can walk between different galleries that are in cubes all around the building. And it's a museum that, instead of taking you to the ancient Greeks, then taking you to ancient Rome, then taking you to the Egyptians, it's what they call a universal museum. So they've laid things out showing you what was happening with burial rites in all these different civilizations at the same time. So suddenly, instead of seeing all our differences in the world, you're asked to focus on all the ways in which we're similar. What do people do when babies are born? How is motherhood depicted across all these civilizations? How is coinage? What are weapons? How are funeral urns? And suddenly you have this deeper understanding of the world. And I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Well, everyone that's been, friends of mine said, you have to go because it's extraordinary. And that's probably why. They haven't actually explained it as cleverly as you have. They've just said, go, it's lovely. I think John Nouvel was the architect, wasn't he? He did it.
Yes, exactly.
But I absolutely, definitely want to go there. And I want to go to Saudi as well. I've never been to Saudi. Have you been to Saudi?
No, I haven't. But I went also to the Museum of the Future in Dubai, which it's not as sort of inspirational like that, but it's pretty wild. I mean, you see what your sort of future job will be, and you get in a lift that simulates, you leaving planet Earth and going up to a colony
like being
on
jaunted
Mars.
Up somewhere.
And what you're, and it shows you there's a huge room full of the species in our planet that will, still be around in however many years. I think it's in 2085 or 2185 or something like that is the year they've picked, or 2150. And you see yourself kind of smiling in a slightly strange spacesuit as you contemplate your new role as a sound engineer of the future. Apparently, as technology booms around us, one of the messages they're giving us is that we're going to need more and more wellness and moments of peace for our sanity.
Yeah,
which is, I guess, already coming.
I think we're
going to need sound
it.
baths and to sort of switch off.
Switching off time. I asked you to bring a photograph that sums up travel to you. I think you've brought two.
Well, they're linked.
So will you please tell us and show us?
Yes, I brought you a picture of Jane, my beautiful DS, and this is us on a mountain pass in Slovenia. After a very, very hairy drive. I can't even tell you the fear in me as a bus came down this single track road and I was trying to go up in sometimes I call her my menopausal lady because she gets these hot flushes and overheats, as I've told you. But this is us arriving at a spectacular point, which was probably worth it, definitely worth it. But I'm also wearing a hat that I love, made by Reinhard Planck in Italy. And it's a hat that I love so much. And I never travel without a hat. So another thing that symbolizes travel to me is a hat and a map. Because although I do have sat-nav, there are still some places that it doesn't reach, and it's really important to have a map. My mother taught me to read a map. And sometimes there are roads you will never find if you don't look at a map. And if you don't understand a map, you'll miss out on some things. And also you could end up on a road that's terrifying if you're not able to also cross-refer and look at a map and see that, the tiny wiggly zigzag is probably some serious mountainous hairpin bends. And
to avoid.
I would say to avoid. Other people in my family would say to embrace.
Before I let you go, what's next for you and where are you travelling to?
In work is the transfer of Inter Alia to the Wyndham's Theatre in March 2026. So that's the Susie Miller's play. It's by the team that made Prima Facie, and we had a very successful run at the National, which, was brilliantly sold out, but also meant that many people who wanted to see it couldn't see it. And, we didn't get enough young people in, and I really want to bring it to a wider audience because it spoke to so many people actually about life, so many people felt that their lives were represented on stage, particularly women. But it's about the juggle of trying to be a woman with a career she loves and a mother and a partner and a lover and a wife and a friend and it's the chaos. It's the living your life in the cracks of other people's needs, she puts it. And then imminently, I'm going to New York on Saturday for the premiere of Now You See Me. So that's actually a break that my partner and I can have on our own, which I don't think we've had any time away alone for well over a year. So
how wonderful. Well, enjoy your break. And I can't wait to see you in the Wyndham's Theatre.
Well,
I shall be there.
Come round and say hello.
I absolutely will.
Yes,
and thank you.
Do.
It's been such a joy and delight to go around the world with you. I've loved your travel tales. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya, for having me.